Recently, someone brought to my attention that I haven't spoken about the link between sexual trauma and sexual abuse and asexuality, how the two intersect, where they do and where they don't. And I think this is a very important topic to talk about and to cover, but it's also a very sensitive topic. So I'm going to try and do this to the best of my ability. But of course, as always, if there is something that I've said that is incorrect, or you feel that misrepresents any part of the ace community, then please do let me know. Also, obviously, you probably haven't clicked on this video otherwise, but I should say, a trigger warning for anyone who isn't comfortable with conversations about sexual abuse and sexual trauma, though I will not be talking about things explicitly. I'm going to roughly split this video into 3 sections. So the first one is going to be a definition of asexuality and how it relates to sexual trauma. The second is going to be talking about people who identify as asexual because of sexual trauma. And the third part is going to be about corrective rape and how that can be a problem for people who identify as asexual. So without further ado, let's get on to the first part. So asexuality. Asexuality is defined as a lack of sexual attraction. That means that you don't have an inherent desire to have sex with someone. It's important to state at this point that asexuality, like any other sexuality, is an orientation. It's a sexual orientation. It's not a mental disorder. So if you identify as asexual, it is a word that you're using to convey the feelings that you are feeling. And in this case, you are feeling that you don't want sex with anyone. And the way to express it is to say you are asexual. There is no inherent link between asexuality and trauma. So by no means have all or even a majority of asexuals been traumatized sexually. And similarly, people can be born as asexual, the same way they can be born as gay or bi or whatever orientation. And also, your orientation is something personal to you. It is something that you decide. You decide how you identify, and no one else can tell you otherwise. But though I just said that the majority of asexuals have not been traumatized, and that if you're asexual, it doesn't mean that you have been assaulted or traumatized and that's what made you that way, that doesn't mean that there aren't people who identify as asexual because of sexual trauma. And this leads me on to my second point. And before I get on to talking about anything else, those people are valid. If you have been traumatized or abused sexually, and because of that you identify as asexual, that is perfectly valid. That is not everyone, and it doesn't mean that all asexuals have been traumatized, but we shouldn't ignore those who have been assaulted, traumatized, abused, and because of that they feel more comfortable identifying as asexual. They are equally as valid as any other ace. And I know that it can feel that because of the things I was saying earlier, because I was saying, okay, if you're asexual, it doesn't mean you've been traumatized. And pushing that narrative can make it feel like you're not as valid. And pushing that narrative can feel like because you've been traumatized, you therefore can't be asexual. You're just a traumatized homosexual, heterosexual. And that's not what I'm trying to say. And I hope you can understand that it's important to clarify that asexuality is an orientation first and foremost. And that by saying that, you're not simultaneously invalidating people who have been traumatized and identify as asexual. And I know that I personally don't believe that if you've been traumatized, it makes your asexuality any less valid. Or if you identify as asexual because of trauma, it doesn't make your asexuality any less valid. And I can't say that I speak for the entire community, but from what I've seen, they are very welcoming and they will accept that you identify that way. And on to my last point, corrective rape. Now, corrective rape, in my opinion, is probably the single most severe problem that we as aces face. This comes in the form of people not believing that you're asexual, basically. Thinking that they can fix you, that they can cure you by having sex with you. So they might say things like, oh, you just haven't had sex with the right person yet, or, oh, if you had sex with me, then you'd be better. And these words, like better, like cured, like fixed, that implies that there is something wrong with you and that sex is this magical cure-all that they can use to fix you, return you to normal, when that's obviously not the case. Asexuality may be different from the majority, but that doesn't mean that it is any less normal, and it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you for identifying or feeling asexual. And I know that it's very easy to become trapped in a situation like that, where maybe you're in a relationship and your partner is pressuring you to have sex, or they might say things like that. They might say that, oh, if you try, then maybe you'll like it. And that is just advocating for corrective rape, in my opinion, and it's not okay. It's assault, it's abuse, and it shouldn't happen. And within the asexual community, there is a notably higher rate of sexual abuse and assault. And that is something that hopefully we can tackle and improve by improving visibility of asexuality and by dispelling the misconceptions that people have about it. Because if people accept that being asexual is a valid way to live, then they won't, hopefully, be as quick to try and fix you with this archaic and short-sighted method of treatment. And finally, it's important to say that if you do identify as asexual and then you're sexually assaulted or abused by someone because of these misconceptions, it doesn't make your orientation any less valid. So yeah, that's all. If you valued this video, I don't think enjoyed is the best word to use here. If you thought this video was valuable, then do say so. If you have anything to add to the conversation, please post it in the comments below. Otherwise, if you valued this video, then please leave a like. I post videos at least every other Saturday, so if you want to see more, then feel free to subscribe. That is all I had to say today. Have a wonderful day, and I shall see you next time.